Before we begin my story, I wanted to share something that has been on my heart. My story is about a time when life felt particularly heavy, when my back ached, and I felt, well, unseen in my own home. It's about those quiet battles nobody else seems to notice. When your mind is that full, it can be hard to know what to even say to God. I recently found a wonderful little book called Real Prayers for Real Life. It's not long sermons. It's just short, simple, and honest prayers for strength when you're tired and for peace when your mind is anxious. It's been a real comfort, and I thought it might be for you, too. You'll find it in the pinned comment below. Anyway, here's what happened. It was the 5th time. I should have known better by now, but I was still shocked. My hand was resting on the back of my floral armchair, just trying to catch my breath. The front door had clicked shut maybe 10 minutes ago. My son, Lawrence, and his wife, Carol, were gone. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the good kind of quiet. It was the loud, messy kind of quiet. I'm Bridget Cook. I'm 67 years old, and I live in a little 2-bedroom house in Nashville that I've kept spotless for 25 years. It's my home, my sanctuary, or at least it used to be. I looked around the living room. It was like a toy box had exploded. Plastic blocks were everywhere. A half-dressed doll was face down on the rug, and there was a sticky-looking fruit snack mashed into one of my good throw pillows. On the coffee table, 3 different juice glasses were sitting, 2 of them with just a swallow left, already forming condensation rings on the wood. My son and his family had been here for less than an hour. An hour? Mom, can we just swing by for a minute? Lawrence had asked on the phone. The kids miss you. That's the line that always gets me. The kids miss you. Of course, I said yes. My heart leaps every time. I love my grandchildren, but the visit is never just a minute, and it's never clean. They come in like a hurricane. Hugs at the door. The kids run straight for the toy basket I keep in the closet, and Carol and Lawrence head for the kitchen. Do you have any of those ginger Alesh we like, Mom? The kids are starving. Can we make them a quick snack? And I, like always, just smile and say, of course. Help yourselves. The kitchen. I dreaded walking in there. I could see it from the living room. It was a disaster. The blender was sitting on the counter, its sides coated in a purple smear of a smoothie they'd made. The lid was in the sink, along with a cutting board, a knife, and the 2 plates they'd used for, I don't even know what. Crackers, maybe. The crumbs were all over the floor, and I knew if I walked in there, they'd crunch under my shoes. The refrigerator door wasn't quite shut, left open just a crack. I sighed. It was a long, slow sigh that came from deep in my chest, and as I let it out, the pain started, a low, dull ache right at the base of my spine. It was familiar. It was the cleanup ache. This wasn't a 10-minute job. This was an hours-long job. I'd have to get on my hands and knees to scrub that sticky spot off the hardwood. I'd have to load the dishwasher, wipe down every counter, and put all the food back where it belonged. Then I'd have to tackle the living room, gathering all the toys, and hope that fruit snack stain on the pillow would come out. I didn't say anything this time. I never do. What am I supposed to say? Lawrence, are you going to rinse your own dish? Carol, could you please teach your children to put one toy away before taking out another? I just sound like a nag, a bitter old woman. And I'm not. I'm just tired. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was already 4:15 p.m. My heart sank. I was supposed to meet my friend Ruth for an early dinner with the church group at 5:30. I'd been looking forward to it all week. I'd have to call and cancel. Again, there was no way I could get this house back in order, take a shower to wash the day off, and drive across town in an hour. My back was already throbbing just from the thought of all that bending and scrubbing. This was the 5th time this had happened. A quick, chaotic visit that left me exhausted, in pain, and canceling my own plans. I felt used. It's a terrible word to use for your own son, I know, but it was the only one that fit. It felt like my home wasn't a place for family to visit, but a convenient pit stop with a free maid service. I walked into the kitchen and picked up the sticky blender lid. As I stood there, with the warm water running over my hands, something inside me felt different. It felt like a small, fine crack in a teacup you've had for years. It still holds water, but you can't trust it anymore. It's just a matter of time. I loved my family. I loved Lawrence. And I adored my grandchildren. But as I stood there, with my back aching and the smell of soured smoothie in the air, I had to wonder, when did I stop being a mother and a grandmother and just become the help? I stood there for a long time, just letting the hot water run over my hands. It's funny, the things you tell yourself to keep the peace. For years, I've just accepted it. I was raised that way. You don't make waves in your own family. You don't complain. Family is supposed to be there for each other. And a mother's job, well, it never really ends, does it? That's what my own mother used to say. So, I'd just scrub the counters and bite my tongue, telling myself it was just part of the package. It's just what you do. But as I finally turned off the water and reached for a dish towel, I started to really question that. Why am I always the one cleaning up? Lawrence is a grown man. Carol is a capable woman. They both have jobs and run their own home. Why is it that when they step into my house, they suddenly forget how to rinse a plate or pick up a toy? I'm starting to think it's because I've let them. I've made it too easy. I remember when Lawrence first got married. I was so thrilled. And when the grandkids came, oh, my heart just about burst. I loved having them over. In those early days, I'd cook a big Sunday dinner, and we'd all sit around the table. Lawrence would help me clear the dishes, and Carol would wipe down the high chair. We'd laugh. It felt like family. I was tired at the end of the day, sure, but it was a good kind of tired. The kind that comes from a full house and a full heart. I don't know when it changed. It was gradual, like water wearing down a stone. Maybe it started when they moved closer, and the big Sunday dinners turned into quick pop-ins during the week. The visits got shorter, but the messes got bigger. It slowly shifted from "Mom, what can we do to help?" to "Mom, do you have any snacks?" Now, it feels like I'm not even here. I'm just part of the furniture. I'm the person who magically refills the juice in the fridge and makes the sticky fingerprints on the sliding glass door disappear. They talk at me, not to me, telling me about their busy schedules and their stressful jobs, while they leave a trail of chaos behind them. And the lack of appreciation, that's what's really starting to wear me down. It's the unspoken expectation, the assumption that my time isn't as valuable as theirs. That because I'm retired, I must just be sitting around with nothing better to do than wait on them. I picked up the blender and started taking it apart to wash it properly. My back gave a sharp twinge, and I winced, bracing myself against the counter. This isn't just a little tidying up anymore. This is hard physical labor. My back hurts. My knees ache from kneeling on the floor to scrub things. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of my back hurting from cleaning up after two perfectly healthy adults who should know better. I finally got the kitchen put back together. Every dish was washed and dried, every counter wiped, the floor swept. It took me almost 40 minutes. I looked at the clock. 4:55 p.m. I leaned against the counter, feeling a bead of sweat on my forehead, and just felt angry. And then I felt guilty for being angry. But the anger was winning. I was supposed to be getting ready for my dinner with Ruth. I should have been picking out a nice top, putting on a little lipstick. Instead, I was standing in a messy living room, my back throbbing, smelling like bleach and spoiled fruit. And I knew, right then, that I had to call Ruth and cancel. This is what they don't see. They don't see me wincing in pain. They don't see me missing out on my own life. They just see a clean house the next time they swing by. I pulled my phone out of my apron pocket, my thumb hovering over Ruth's name. I was tired of being the silent, accommodating one. I was tired of being treated like free help. The crack inside, that little teacup I'd been picturing, it was getting wider. And I was starting to worry that if I didn't say something soon, I wasn't just going to crack. I was going to shatter. I took a deep breath and pressed the call button next to Ruth's name. I hated this part. I hated lying, and I hated canceling. She picked up on the second ring, her voice cheerful as always. "Bridget, are you on your way? I saved you a good seat right next to me." A lump formed in my throat. This right here was the part Lawrence and Carol never saw. They were probably home by now, putting their feet up, not giving a second thought to the wreckage they'd left behind. They didn't see me, phone in hand, about to disappoint a friend I barely get to see anymore. "Ruth, I'm so sorry," I said, trying to keep the wobble out of my voice. "I don't think I'm going to be able to make it tonight." "Oh no." Her voice was filled with instant concern. "Are you feeling all right, dear? Is it your back again?" "It is," I said, and it wasn't even a lie. My back was absolutely throbbing. It's acting up terribly. I'm just worn out, and I haven't even had a chance to shower or anything. I'd be terrible company. There was a pause on the line. It was just a second or two, but it felt long. Ruth has known me since our boys were in kindergarten together. She knows my fine from my fine. "Bridget," she said, and her voice wasn't cheerful anymore. It was quiet. "Was Lawrence over there today?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't have to. The silence was the answer. "He was," I finally whispered, sinking down into that floral armchair. I felt all the energy just drain right out of me, leaving me as limp as a dish rag. "He and Carol and the kids swung by for a bit. And they left you with a mess again, didn't they?" I looked around the living room, the toys, the sticky pillow. I thought about the 40 minutes I'd already spent in the kitchen. "It's just a lot, Ruth. It's always a lot." I heard her take a slow breath. "Honey, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it," she said. Her voice was kind, but firm. "Why do you never speak up for yourself?" I opened my mouth, and then I closed it. Speak up? What was I supposed to say? "He's my son, Ruth. They're just busy." The excuses sounded so weak, even to my own ears. "I'm his mother. I'm just helping. Helping is one thing, Bridget. Being a doormat is another," she said. "He is a grown man with a wife and children. He knows how to clean his own house. Why doesn't he clean yours?" I don't know," I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "Well, you'd better figure it out," she said, "because your back isn't getting any younger, and those messes aren't getting any smaller. We missed you tonight. I missed you. It's not right that you have to cancel your life because they're too lazy to pick up after themselves." She was right. It wasn't right. "I'm sorry, Ruth. I really am." "I know you are, dear. You're always the one who's sorry," she said gently. "You take care of that back. And you think about what I said. Call me tomorrow." We hung up. I sat there in the armchair in the dimming light of the living room. The house was silent, but Ruth's words were echoing in my head, loud as a church bell. "Why do you never speak up for yourself?" I looked at the scattered toys, and for the first time, I didn't just feel tired. I felt a hot, sharp anger. She was right. This was the second time, this month, I'd canceled on her. And what about the book club I skipped last week because I was just too exhausted from their quick visit the day before? My whole life, my whole schedule was starting to revolve around cleaning up after them. And I was the one letting it happen. I'd been so worried about making waves, so terrified of not being the nice, accommodating mother, that I had let myself become their unpaid maid. I was 67 years old. I had raised my son. It was supposed to be my time now. Time for dinners with friends, for my garden, for reading a book in peace. But I had no peace. I just had a sore back and a resentment that was growing heavier every single day. I sat in that chair for a long time. I didn't get up to clean the living room. The toys could wait. The stain on the pillow could wait. I just sat there, and I let myself be angry. The guilt I'd felt earlier was gone. It was replaced by something else. Something cold and clear. I had allowed this cycle to go on for far too long. I knew Lawrence and Carol would be back. They always came back. But as I finally, painfully pushed myself up out of the chair to find the heating pad, I knew one thing for sure. I had to decide. Was I going to let this keep happening, cleaning up their messes until my back gave out for good? Or was I finally going to find my voice and speak my truth? Something had to change. And I knew with a certainty that was both terrifying and a little bit thrilling, it was going to have to be me. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept turning over, my back stiff and aching, and Ruth's question just played on a loop in my head. Why do you never speak up for yourself? By the time the sun came up, my anger from the night before had cooled down into this cold, heavy pit of dread in my stomach. I knew what I had to do, but knowing it and doing it are two very different things. I got up, made my coffee, and looked at the living room. The toys were still scattered, just as I'd left them. The stained pillow was still on the floor. Just looking at it made me tired. I spent the next hour cleaning up what I'd been too angry to touch last night. And with every toy I put back in the basket, with every wipe of the rag over that sticky fruit snack, my resolve hardened. This was not helping. This was enabling. I decided to call him. I couldn't wait until he swung by again. I had to do it now, while the feeling was fresh. I sat at my kitchen table with my cup of coffee and stared at his name on my phone. My heart was pounding like a drum. What if he gets angry? What if he stops bringing the grandchildren over? What if I say it all wrong? I must have rehearsed the opening line in my head a dozen times. Finally, I just pressed the button. He picked up on the third ring, sounding rushed but happy. Hey, Mom. What's up? Everything okay? Yes, hi, honey. Everything's fine. I started, my voice sounding a little shaky even to me. Is this an okay time? Do you have a minute? Yeah, sure. I'm just heading into a meeting, but I've got a second. What's on your mind? I took a deep breath. Well, Lawrence, I wanted to talk to you about your visit yesterday. The line went quiet. Okay, he said, his voice instantly cautious. What about it? Honey, I love it when you and Carol and the kids come over. You know I do. But when you leave, the house is... I couldn't find the right word. It's a very big mess. There was another pause. When he spoke, he sounded defensive. A mess? What do you mean, Mom? The kids were just playing with the toys you have for them. We had a snack. It's more than that, Lawrence, I said, gripping the phone tighter. The kitchen was a disaster. The blender, dishes in the sink, food left out. The living room was, well, it took me over an hour last night just to get the kitchen clean again. My back was hurting so much from it all that I had to cancel my dinner plans with Ruth. He didn't say anything. I just heard the sound of a car horn in the background of his call. Lawrence, I had no idea, Mom, he said, and he sounded genuinely surprised. I don't know. I just thought you enjoyed it. Enjoyed it? That one stone. Enjoyed what, Lawrence? Cleaning? No, not the cleaning, he said quickly, stumbling over his words. I just You love seeing the grandkids. You're always so happy to have us. You never said anything. I thought you were just being a grandma. That was it. That was the heart of it. I do love seeing the grandkids, Lawrence, more than anything in this world. But lately, I don't feel like a grandmother when you visit. I feel like the help. The word just hung there in the air between us. I feel like my home is just a convenient place for you all to stop, and I'm just the person who cleans up after you're gone. And it's exhausting me. My back can't take it anymore. And honestly, it just plain hurts my feelings. I'd said it. My chest felt tight, and I was terrified of what he'd say next. Mom, he said, and his voice was completely different. All the defensiveness was gone. He just sounded guilty. Mom, I am so sorry. I swear, I never, ever meant for you to feel that way. We get so busy, and we're so comfortable at your place. It's like a second home. I guess we just stopped thinking. We stopped seeing it. I let out a breath I didn't even know I was holding. I am so sorry, he said again. Of course, we'll help. That's awful that you had to cancel your plans. We'll do better. I promise. Next time we come over, we'll make sure everything is spotless before we leave. You shouldn't have to lift a finger. I promise, Mom. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. It was relief. Pure, simple relief. Thank you, honey, I whispered. That's all I wanted. I needed you to hear me. I hear you, Mom. Loud and clear. Don't you worry about this again, okay? I'll talk to Carol. We said our goodbyes and hung up. I sat there at the kitchen table for a long time. I felt lighter. I felt like a weight I'd been carrying for years had finally been lifted off my shoulders. He'd heard me. He'd understood. He promised. But even with all that relief, there was a tiny, nagging little seed of doubt. It had been easy, almost too easy. Was this promise a real one? Or was it just the quick, easy thing to say to make his mother feel better and end an awkward conversation? I pushed the thought away. He was a good son. He promised. It would be different now. It had to be. For the next few days, I felt lighter. That little seed of doubt was still there, but I did my best to ignore it. I told myself that I'd been clear and he'd been sorry. I'd given him the benefit of the doubt. A whole week went by. It was nice. I had lunch with Ruth at the restaurant on time, and I didn't have to spend a single evening with the heating pad on my back. Then, Saturday morning, the phone rang. It was Lawrence. Hey, Mom. We're out running errands. Wondered if we could swing by with the kids for a little bit. My stomach did a little flip. Oh, sure, honey. That sounds lovely, I said, and I meant it. This was the test. I'll see you in a bit. I hung up, and I actually felt hopeful. I tidied up the coffee table, made sure there was juice in the fridge. I was smiling. Today, I wouldn't be their maid. Today, I'd just be a grandmother. They arrived about an hour later, the same whirlwind of coats, and, hi, grandmas as always. The kids ran for the toy basket. Lawrence and Carol headed for the kitchen. Mom, are you starving? We are, Carol announced, opening the fridge. Oh, you have eggs. Let's make some scrambled eggs for the kids. Go right ahead, I said, settling into my armchair to watch the kids play. It was chaotic, louder than usual. Maybe they made the eggs and toast, and another one of those purple smoothies. There were crumbs on the floor, and the kids were pulling every single toy out of the basket, scattering them from one end of the room to the other. I watched Lawrence. He was on his phone, laughing at something while he ate a piece of toast over the sink. He didn't seem to notice the strawberry jam his son was smearing on the coffee table. A little knot began to form in my stomach, but I held on. He promised. I kept repeating it in my head. He promised they'd clean up before they left. They were there for almost 2 hours. When it was time to go, it was the usual rush. We're going to be late. Carol called out, grabbing her purse. Kids' shoes on. Now. They scrambled for the door, yelling their goodbyes. Love you, Mom. Thanks for having us. Lawrence yelled, giving me a quick hug. Love you too, I said, forcing a smile. He stepped out the door. He didn't look back. He didn't look at the kitchen. He didn't look at the living room. He just left. I stood at the door and watched their car pull away. Then I closed it. I turned around and I just looked. It was worse than last time. Far worse. The kitchen counter was covered in eggshells and butter wrappers. The skillet was in the sink, caked with yellow, along with 4 plates, sticky with syrup. The blender, of course, was on the counter. The living room it was just a sea of plastic. And right in the middle of the rug, there was the doll, this time with jam in its hair. His promise meant nothing. It wasn't just an empty promise. It was a lie. He'd told me what I wanted to hear to make me quiet. And then he'd done the exact same thing. No, he'd done worse. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry. I didn't feel my back ache. I felt cold. The little crack inside me, the one I'd been feeling for months, it didn't just crack. It broke. It shattered into 1,000 pieces, and all the hurt and resentment just drained away. And what was left was just this cold, hard calm. I didn't get the dish rag. I didn't go for the heating pad. I walked into my kitchen, right past the mess, and opened the pantry. I pulled out 2 of the big, black, 30-gallon garbage bags. I went back to the living room. I didn't rush. I calmly, methodically picked up every single toy. The blocks, the plastic rings, the doll with the jam in its hair. I even picked up the throw pillow with the fruit snack stain I'd missed last time. I put all of it into the first bag. Then I went to the kitchen. I unplugged the blender and put the whole unit, lid and all, into the second bag. I took the skillet from the sink, the 4 sticky plates, the juice glasses, and the silverware. They clanked as they went into the bag. I swept the crumbs, the eggshells, and the wrappers off the counter and right in on top of them. I tied both bags. They were heavy. I opened my front door, stepped onto the porch, and placed both bags, side by side, squarely on my welcome mat. I went back inside. I took my phone out of my apron. I opened the door, just enough to take a clear picture of those 2 black bags. Then I opened my messages to Lawrence. I attached the photo, and I typed. My fingers didn't even shake. You forgot these. Please come pick them up. My house is not a storage unit, and I am not your maid. This will not be happening again. I hit send. I closed my front door. I turned the lock, and then I turned the deadbolt. I walked to my armchair, sat down in the middle of the empty, messy room, and I felt nothing, just quiet. The ball was in his court now. I sat there in that chair for at least 20 minutes. I didn't move. I just stared at the empty floor where the toys had been. The house was finally quiet. The phone in my hand was quiet, too. Then it lit up. It was Lawrence. He was calling. My heart jumped into my throat. I looked at his name. I didn't want to talk. I'd said everything I needed to say in that text. I let it ring. It went to voicemail. A few seconds later, it rang again and again. On the 4th try, I just hit the silence button on the side of my phone. Then the text messages started. The first one just said, Mom. The next, what is this? This isn't funny. Call me. A minute later, are you serious? You put the kids' toys in the trash. I didn't answer. I just watched the little bubbles pop up. I knew he was angry. I knew he was shocked. Good. Then a new message popped up. It was from Carol. Bridget, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but that was a childish and incredibly petty thing to do. We are coming to get our things. My shoulders, which had been up around my ears, finally relaxed. Good. I whispered to the empty room. Come get them. I heard their car pull up about 15 minutes later. I heard the car doors slam hard. I heard footsteps on my porch. I didn't move from my chair. I heard the rustling of the big plastic bags, the heavy clanking of the dishes, and the skillet. I heard Carol mutter something I couldn't quite make out, but the tone was clear. Then the car doors slammed again. They backed out of the driveway, and they were gone. And then silence. The rest of that day, nothing. The next day, Sunday, nothing. Monday, nothing. This was the part one hadn't really prepared for. The fallout. The silence was heavier and harder than any mess they had ever left. I had pushed, and they had pushed back by disappearing. I knew exactly what they were thinking. They were thinking I was being difficult. They were thinking I was old and bitter. After all these years of me being the nice one, the easygoing one, I had finally done something they didn't like. And now they were waiting. They were waiting for me to be the one to break. They were waiting for me to call, crying, and apologize. I talked to Ruth. I told her what I'd done. She was quiet for a long moment. Well, she finally said, "You certainly got his attention. But now they're not speaking to me. Ruth," I said, my voice starting to shake. "Have I ruined it? Have I pushed my own son away?" "You listen to me, Bridget Cook," she said, her voice firm. "You did not ruin anything. You just stopped letting them ruin your house and your health. You set a boundary, a very clear one. Now, the hardest part, you have to hold it. Do not call him. Do not text him. You have nothing to be sorry for. Let him stew in it. He'll come around." It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every time the phone rang, my heart leaped, and every time it wasn't him, it sank. An entire week went by. The first week in years my house had stayed perfectly clean, and my back didn't hurt at all. Then, 2 full weeks after the trash bag incident, my phone rang. It was Lawrence. I took a deep breath and answered. "Hello." His voice was quiet. He didn't sound angry. He just sounded tired. "Hey, Mom." "Hi, Lawrence." There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end. "Mom," he finally said, I got your text, and I came and got the bags. I just waited. I didn't say a word. "I'm sorry," he said. And this time it was different. It wasn't the quick, easy promise I'd gotten before. This sounded heavy. I was an idiot, Mom. I was a terrible son. I didn't listen to you. And I kept doing it. He took a shaky breath. When Carol and I got home and unpacked those bags and saw the sticky plates and the skillet, I was just so embarrassed. I had no idea. We were treating you like you said, a maid. And I am so sorry. I let out the breath I'd been holding for 14 days. "Thank you for saying that, Lawrence. I'd like to make it up to you," he said. "Not just swing by. I'd like to take you to lunch. Just me and you. If you'd let me. I'd like that," I said. A few days later, he picked me up. We went to a little cafe, and he just talked. He apologized again. He explained that he and Carol were so stressed with work and the kids that they just saw my house as a safe zone where they could drop their guard, but that he realized they'd been taking advantage. And then things slowly changed. The next time they visited, they asked first, "Mom, would it be okay if we came for dinner on Friday? We will bring pizza and we will clean up." And they did. When they finished eating, Carol immediately gathered the plates. Lawrence wiped down the table. And before they left, Lawrence announced, "Okay, team, cleanup drill." And he got on his hands and knees with his son, picking up every single block. He walked to the kitchen, put the last toy in the basket, and he looked at me. "Is this okay, Mom? Is this better?" I felt a tear slide down my cheek. "This is perfect. Honey, this is all I ever wanted." He hugged me, a real long hug, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like a mother again, not a maid. It's been about 3 months now since what I call the trash bag incident. And I can tell you, the biggest change is a feeling, or really the lack of a feeling. It's the knot in my stomach. It's gone. When the phone rings now, and I see Lawrence's name, my shoulders don't tighten up. I don't brace myself. I just answer. Last Friday, he called. "Hey, Mom, what are you up to tonight? We were thinking of ordering pizza. Can we come over and eat with you? We'll bring everything." "That sounds wonderful, honey," I said, and I meant it. They showed up, and Lawrence was carrying 2 large pizzas, and Carol had a big salad bowl. "We brought paper plates," she said, holding them up with a smile. "So, absolutely zero cleanup for you tonight, I promise." And it was lovely. It was just easy. The kids were still kids. Mind you, my grandson still managed to drop a piece of pepperoni on the rug, and my granddaughter spilled a little of her soda. But the difference was, before I could even get up, Lawrence was there with a napkin. "I got it, Mom. You just sit." Carol and he worked together, wiping up the spill, throwing the paper plates in the trash. The kids ran off to play with the much smaller basket of toys I now keep. When it was time for them to go, Lawrence said his new phrase, "All right, gang, clean up drill." And the 4 of them, like a little team, spent 10 minutes picking up the blocks and putting the toy basket back in the closet. They hugged me goodbye, and I shut the door behind them. I stood in my living room. I looked around. The pizza boxes were gone. The table was clean. The toys were put away. There was nothing for me to do. Absolutely nothing. I didn't have to bend. I didn't have to scrub. I didn't have to sigh. My back didn't hurt. I just went to my armchair, sat down, and picked up the book I'd been reading. It was a simple, quiet moment, and it felt like a miracle. But the biggest change hasn't just been in my house. It's been outside my house. The following week, Ruth called. "Bridget," she said, "our church group dinner is this Wednesday. Now, are you really going to be there? Or is Lawrence swinging by again?" I laughed. It was a real, genuine laugh. "Ruth, I will be there front and center. Pick me up at 5. When Wednesday came, I took my time getting ready. I put on my nice blue blouse, the one I'd been wanting to wear, and a little lipstick. I was ready and waiting on my porch when Ruth pulled up. Walking into that church hall felt like a victory. It smelled like baked chicken and coffee. I saw all the familiar faces, and they smiled and waved. "Bridget, it's so good to see you." I sat at the table with Ruth and our friends. We talked about our gardens, about our grandkids, the good parts, about a new book someone was reading. I laughed so hard at one of Ruth's stories that my stomach hurt, but in a good way. And as I sat there on that hard, unforgiving wooden folding chair, I had a sudden realization. I had been sitting there for over 2 hours, and my back didn't twinge. Not once. The constant, dull ache that had been my companion for over a year was just gone. I wasn't exhausted. I wasn't in pain. I was just happy. Ruth reached over and patted my hand. "It's so good to have you back, Bridget," she said, her eyes warm. You look lighter." She was right. I felt lighter. I hadn't realized how much weight I'd been carrying. It wasn't just the physical weight of their trash and their messes. It was the emotional weight of all that resentment, all that anger I'd been swallowing. And the strangest part of it all, my relationship with Lawrence and Carol is better than it's been in years. It's not fragile anymore. We don't walk on eggshells. That unspoken expectation, the one where I was the help and they were the guests, It's gone. And now that it's gone, we can actually talk. Carol and I had a long conversation about her job, and I really listened instead of just staring at the crumbs she was leaving on my counter. Lawrence calls me just to check in now, not just to ask if he can come over. I learned that by not speaking up, I was the one being dishonest. I was pretending to be the happy, helpful mother while secretly feeling like a bitter, used-up old woman. That wasn't fair to them, and it definitely wasn't fair to me. Now, I can just be their mom, and they can just be my son and daughter-in-law. The peace in my house is real now, and so is the peace in my heart. It's strange what happens when you're not in pain all the time. For the first couple of weeks, I almost didn't know what to do with myself. I'd wake up in the morning, and my back wouldn't be stiff. I'd walk into my kitchen, and it would be clean just as I'd left it. I kept finding myself with these hours that I used to spend either cleaning up a mess or just sitting in my armchair with a heating pad, too tired and sore to move. At first, I just read a lot of books and caught up on my shows. But then, one sunny afternoon, I was looking out my kitchen window at my little patch of a backyard. It was neglected. The weeds had gotten high around my old rose bushes, and the little herb garden I used to keep was just a box of dirt. I'd always told myself I was just too busy or too tired to keep up with it. But looking at it now, I realized it wasn't true. I wasn't too busy. I was just spending all my energy on the wrong things. So I put on my old gloves, found my trowel, and I went outside. I got down on my knees, and it didn't hurt. I spent 3 hours out there. I pulled weeds until my hands were sore, but it was a good sore. It was the ache of creation, not the ache of resentment. I cleared out the old, dead stalks and found new green shoots underneath. I trimmed the rose bushes. I decided right then and there that I was going to plant tomatoes and basil again, just like I used to. I came inside covered in dirt and sweat, and I felt fantastic. I felt alive. That little bit of energy just grew. The next week, I called my friend Margaret. She used to run my old book club, the one I dropped out of last year, telling everyone my eyesight was just too bad for all that reading. The truth was, I was just too exhausted to keep up. Margaret, I said when she answered, "It's Bridget Cook." Bridget! My goodness, it's been ages. How are you? I'm doing really well, Margaret, I said, and I was surprised by how true it was. I was wondering if that old book club of yours still meets. We sure do. Third Tuesday of every month. Why? Are you thinking of coming back? I am, I said, feeling a smile spread across my face. What's the book for this month? I went out and bought the book that afternoon. I'm finding all these little pieces of myself that I'd packed away in a box. I'd packed them away because I thought I had to, because I thought my job as a grandmother was to be on call, to be the family's shock absorber. I still love my family just as much as I ever did. My heart still leaps when I hear my grandkids' voices. But the dread is gone. I'm no longer trapped by their expectations because I don't let their expectations run my life anymore. The visits are still regular, but now they're on my terms, too. Lawrence called last week. "Hey, Mom, can we come by Saturday?" And I looked at my new calendar. I'd written gardening on it. "You know, honey, Saturday I'm actually busy with a project in the yard. How about Sunday afternoon after church?" And he just said, "Oh, okay. Sunday sounds great. See you then." It was that simple. I didn't have to lie. I didn't have to make an excuse. I just had my own life. This new life isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's just quiet. It's the quiet joy of sitting on my porch in the morning in a clean house with a cup of coffee and my book. It's the pleasure of digging in the dirt and seeing something grow. It's laughing with women my own age about things that have nothing to do with my son or his messy kitchen. I'm still a mother. I'm still a grandmother. I love those parts of me, but they're not the only parts. I'm also Bridget, and I'm finally at 67 years old, taking the time to take care of her. It's not selfish. I've learned that now. It's not selfish to protect your peace or your health. It's necessary. It's the only way you can really have anything left over to give. When I look back on it all now, sitting here in my quiet, clean living room, it's strange. I see that floral armchair where I used to sit, aching, feeling so angry and so trapped. And then I look out the window at my little garden where my new tomato plants are starting to climb, and I just feel relief. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that what I did was easy. It wasn't. That 2-week period after the trash bag incident, when Lawrence and I weren't speaking, it was awful. It was one of the most stressful and lonely times of my life. I was sick to my stomach every single day. I kept second-guessing myself, wondering if I'd gone too far, wondering if I had permanently ruined my relationship with my only son over some dirty dishes and a messy floor. I know some of you listening to my story probably thought, trash bags? She put her grandchildren's toys in a trash bag. And I understand that. Believe me, I never thought I was the kind of person who could do something like that. But I tried the nice way. I'd use my words. I'd explain my feelings, and I was ignored. Sometimes the only way to make people understand that you've reached your limit is to finally actually show them. That hard, awful decision was a turning point. It was the moment I finally chose myself. It was difficult, but it brought me this. It brought me peace. It brought me my health back. My back hasn't given me a single day of trouble since. It gave me my friendships back. It gave me my garden. And most of all, it gave me a real, honest relationship with my son, one that's built on mutual respect, not just one-sided obligation. I've learned that it's never, ever too late to stand up for yourself. It doesn't matter if you're 67 or 87. You're allowed to live on your own terms. You are not a bad mother or a bad grandmother for wanting your own time, your own peace, or just a clean house. Your well-being matters. And that's my story. It's made me wonder, what would you have done in my shoes? Do you think I was too harsh with the trash bags? Or do you think it was the only way left? Have you ever had to set boundaries with your own family? And how did it feel? I truly want to know. Please let me know in the comments. Your story just might help someone else today who's feeling just as tired and walked on as I was. If this story helped you, or just made you feel a little less alone, I would be so grateful if you would like this video and maybe share it with a friend who needs to hear it, too. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this one, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. It really does help, and it lets me know that you're out there listening. Lastly, remember to download this wonderful book called Real Prayers for Real Life. You'll find it in the pinned comment below. Now, if you like this story, go ahead and click on the next video appearing on your screen, because in it is a story of betrayal and revolt like you've never seen before on her Kindle stories. Thank you for